Back in 2020, Polestar came out of nowhere with this electric thing. Well, not out of nowhere, it came out of Volvo, but even the might of Volvo couldn't help the two defeat the number 3, the Tesla Model 3, that is. So what did Polestar do? They came back and dropped an improved number 2. But is the new number 2 enough to sink the Model 3 and become number 1? Sounds like a rap, doesn't it? Let's frickin' find out. Oh yeah.
Specifically, this is the new Polestar 2 long-range single motor, and it might be the best of the bunch. It's £48,000, offers up to 406 miles of range, has an updated design, and significant upgrades that make it better than it was at launch.
But before we talk about that, let's talk about the fact that Autotrader can help you buy, sell, and lease your next car. We even give away cars for free in our electric car giveaway. This month's prize is a brand new VW ID Buzz worth around £67,000, or you can win one of these. This is a Brompton electric C-Line Urban worth around £3,000, and it's a great piece of kit. It's battery powered, which means as you ride, the bike pedals with you, so when you get to your destination, you don't get there a sweaty mess. And it also folds up, and it's easy to do. All you do is you disconnect the battery, fold the handlebars, fold the frame in half, fold down the rear wheel, drop the seat, and Bob is your uncle. What you got is a fold-up electric bike you can pop in your boot, you can take it on the tube or your office, probably, if your boss doesn't mind, or you can walk around doing exercises to get hench. The link is down below to find out how to enter to win the car or the bike. Do it now. Where were we?
Yes, the Polestar 2 long-range single motor. It's in the same class as the Tesla Model 3, and you might argue it's actually better looking too. Sadly, the only real exterior change on this new car is the grille, which actually isn't a grille anymore. Apparently, it's now a smart zone, which houses the safety cameras and the radar.
At the side, it's got this kind of jacked up saloon kind of look, like a normal car, but with higher suspension, which is no bad thing because it's always been quite handsome, boxy, but good. If you know, you know. If you know, then leave a comment down below. Shout out to my old people. And it also has some new 20-inch wheels, but don't get these. I'll tell you why later on. And at the back, that's where you're gonna find the biggest change of all. This one is enormous. You can't see it, can you? No, trust me, it's there.
The new Polestar 2 single motor has gone from being front-wheel drive with a motor at the front to rear-wheel drive with a motor at the back. And that's quite a fundamental change. Power has gone up from 231 horsepower to 299, and torque from 330 to 490. And it now does 0 to 62 in 6.2. That's over a second quicker.
Now you're probably asking, why go from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive? Volvo hasn't built a rear-wheel drive car in about 20 years on the grounds of safety. They don't like people doing skids and all the fun stuff because they're focused on keeping people in one piece. But there are benefits to going rear-wheel drive, particularly in an electric car. Tesla have done it for years, and finally, Volvo/Polestar have cottoned on to those benefits, which I will now demonstrate. If you have a front-wheel drive car and you accelerate hard, the front lifts up as you accelerate, and then you lose traction, so you get lots of tire smoke and you go nowhere fast. By moving the motor to the rear, when you accelerate, the rear digs down as the front goes up, and that gives you extra traction, extra purchase to push you along very nicely indeed. There are also benefits in terms of having less weight at the front and a better turning circle because the front wheels can turn more aggressively left and more aggressively to the right hand side. So dynamically, you get an improvement there as well. And also, if you have a front-on collision, bang, there's no engine or motor to damage in that crash because it's safely tucked away at the back. And rear crashes are statistically less likely to happen. That's the theory anyway. Let's go find out if it's true. So, does it feel any different? Yeah, it really does. The first thing you notice when you drive this car is that it definitely feels rear-wheel drive, and that is a big advantage over the previous front-wheel drive car. Put your foot down and you can feel the back end squat and launch you towards the horizon. It's also definitely faster than the previous front-wheel drive car, and it's not a drift machine, it's not a tire shredding monster. If you accelerate, it won't light up the rear wheels, but it definitely feels a bit more athletic, a bit more dynamic compared to its predecessor. Polestar does offer an all-wheel drive version of the Polestar 2, and in the standard version of that car, you get 421 horsepower. It used to be 402. Or in the performance version, you get 476 horsepower, and that car is pretty rapid. It does 0 to 62 in around 4.2 seconds, which is quick, although I don't really feel like you need to go much faster than you would in this single motor car. Interestingly, neither the single motor or the dual motor are anywhere near as fast as the new Volvo EX30, worth bearing in mind if you love acceleration. Now, what about the way it actually steers around corners? Does it feel more dynamic? Not necessarily. To be honest, the steering feels a bit slow. There are 3 different settings for the steering. There's light, medium, and heavy. I prefer the medium or the light setting, but none of those modes feels anywhere near as quick or as dynamic as you'd feel in a Tesla Model 3. You get the feeling that what Polestar were trying to go for wasn't a sporty drive, but rather a more efficient drive when they switched from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. It's no bad thing, it's just an observation, and it is really capable, but it's kind of impressive in the way that somebody playing Guitar Hero on the most difficult setting is impressive. But is it fun? Yeah, jury's still out on that one.
Range and charging speed are both improved. The standard range car still gets a 69 kWh net battery, charging at an improved 135 kilowatts, but long range models get an 82 kWh battery in this car, good for a claimed 406 miles, 21 miles more than a long range Tesla Model 3.
The whole efficiency thing, they've kind of knocked it out the park really, because I'm getting some incredible range figures. I've got about half a battery left, and it's still indicating 180 miles of range, which if you double that, will give you around 360 miles. And the impressive thing is that today is absolutely freezing. It's currently hovering between kind of 1 degree and 3 degrees Celsius outside, and I'm still getting this incredible range. What's interesting is I'm not hypermiling, I'm not driving slowly, I'm using all the aircon and the heating and the electrics in this car, and I'm still getting around 4.5, 5 miles per kilowatt hour. And if you multiply 5 miles per kilowatt hour by the battery size, 82, then this works out to be around 410 miles of range in the winter. That is incredibly impressive. Oh, and I also love the way this car reports the amount of range that it gives you as well. If you go into the range assistant, it tells you that best case you'll get 180 miles currently with half a battery, but if you drive like a knob, then you might get 95 miles. So the decision is yours as to how you drive the car. Inside the cabin, it's pretty much as you were, which is mostly good. I know this car goes head to head with the Tesla Model 3, but this feels very, very different. The Model 3 just feels like a car interior with an iPad bolted to the dashboard. This also has an iPad bolted to the dashboard, but in fact it's not an iPad, it's more like a Google Android device, because it is powered by Google, and that has good and bad. Some of the good things is that it's very, very responsive. So if I go into Google Maps, look at the speed of that. You can actually zip around the maps no problem whatsoever. And if I enter a destination, what you'll see is that it will actually calculate my route and also tell me how much battery power I'll have left at the end of that journey. That's very, very good. It also has things like YouTube built in, so you can watch your favorite YouTube car channel. That's us, in case you're wondering. Now, some of the bad things. Controlling the heating and climate control in this car is an absolute nightmare. You can't actually see any heating controls on the screen unless you're driving along, right? Stop beeping at me. You got to press that down there, and then you got to press that down there, and then you got to press all these little buttons down here to control the fan speed, at which point you probably crashed into the person in front of you. But luckily it's rear wheel drive, so there's no front motor to get damaged. But that, yeah, it's pretty awful really, but not as awful as the cup holder situation. This is an absolute nightmare. Let's say I've got a little bit of fizzy pop right here, right? Down here I've got to slide the armrest back, put the pop in, but then where's my armrest? Look at this, I've got a 6-speed manual right here getting in my way, and that's not ideal, is it? But you think to yourself, hang on, I'll use the other cup holder. So you fold that up, You put that in and then you decide to close it and realize, oh no, I can't close that. So you got to fold it back. And for some reason, it goes all the way back onto the rear passenger's laps. This is an absolute ergonomic nightmare. Must do better, Polestar.
I'd say Polestar or maybe Google need to do a bit better with the reliability of the screen too, because during our time with it, it did become unresponsive. Not ideal, seeing as literally everything is controlled through that display. Round the back is pretty good. Leg room is fair, but headroom is a little bit tight if you're over 6 foot. And the seats do make you sit very upright. There are cup holders and a fold down armrest, which are also very shallow, plus controls for the heated seats and access to 2 USB ports. Annoyingly though, the Polestar 2 does have a transmission tunnel, which makes it a bit awkward for middle seat passengers. Thankfully, space in the furniture-friendly boot is impressive and it's very easy to access by waving your foot underneath the bumper. It's got a bigger opening than a Model 3 and a handy partitioner to keep your muddy boots separate from your shopping, plus a couple of hooks, straps and some underfloor storage. There's a frunk as well, although it's a bit shallow, more of a hole for your charging cable.
Just another word on the ergonomics in this car. I've just noticed that the vents that are designed to blow hot air or cold air at your head and chest area aren't located in a sensible place. They're at the top of the dashboard, which means that they blow air up there instead of over here. And when you combine that with the ridiculous cup holders, you just wonder what the hell some people at Polestar were thinking when they designed these elements. One thing the Polestar 2 does really well is the driving position. First of all, the seats are very comfortable and you sit up really high if you want to, so you can get a great view out the front of the car. You can also slam the seats down quite low to give you a much more sporty feel. Visibility out the back isn't great. The C-pillars are thick with 2 Cs, so reverse parking isn't the easiest in this car, although you've got some nice frameless mirrors and a good bird's eye view camera, which does help the situation. A couple of other things that I like. First of all, the sound of the indicator. Listen. That's a cool noise. I really like that. And also the strength of the heated steering wheel. This is the hottest steering wheel that I've ever driven. At some points, you feel like you can barely touch it because it gets so hot. But I love that. I've got cold hands, so that is a really cool feature for me. I like that. The stereo in this car is really good as well. I had to play with it early on and it's got some nice bass to it. It thumps. It's got a nice balance across the spectrum, some good volume. You'll enjoy that. I think you'll also enjoy the fact that this car comes with Google Assistant, so you can ask it some really complicated questions, not quite AI level, but some really difficult questions that ordinary car voice recognition systems can't deal with, and it will handle it. For example, let me go into Google Assistant. How heavy is an elephant?
An adult male Asian elephant weighs on average 4,000 kilograms.
So, you know, you wouldn't get that in a, say, Tesla Model 3, for example, and it's a really useful feature if you've got a car full of kids who are asking you questions that you don't have the answer to. You can just ask Google. I like that. And the general ambiance in the car is pretty decent as well. I mean, most electric cars are quiet, but this one is actually pretty decent in the sense that there's no wind noise from these tiny little mirrors, and also not too much road noise. But that brings me on to a point about the wheels. So this car comes with 20-inch wheels, and I've got to say the ride quality, which is influenced by the wheels, isn't the best in the world. On a perfectly smooth road, it's okay, but when you get yourself on some very potholed roads, which there are plenty of in the UK, and especially when you've got a car full of people and stuff, you really do feel like the ride, I don't know, might be a bit of a deal breaker. I wouldn't say it's the worst that I've ever felt in an electric car, but it needs to be better for my liking. It's a little bit too jiggly, a little bit too uncouth. Ironically, the performance version comes with some very expensive Öhlins dampers, which are manually adjustable. And weirdly, I think that they will probably feel better than the standard suspension on the standard car. But end of the day, suspension, I think, in this vehicle needs to be better. Right, how good is the Polestar 2? Will it demolish the Tesla Model 3 and become #1? Well, the car does good and bad. I wouldn't say that the switch to a rear-wheel drive layout does it any favors in terms of its dynamics and handling, but it does increase the efficiency massively. The range in this car is absolutely phenomenal. I also love the way it looks. I think it feels solid and sturdy. I think it's an attractive car in many ways, although there are things that really let it down. For example, the ridiculous cup holders, the pointless vents on the top of the dashboard. There's also the fact that this car is more expensive than a Tesla Model 3, which means that ultimately the best car is the one that really suits you. Go drive them both, see which one you prefer, and then let me know in the comments down below. Me personally, maybe it's not about the 2 or the 3. I'd go and buy a BMW i4.
Et si bien on va qu'on l'appelle, si lui